Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everyone. I can see quite a few people coming into the Zoom room now. So when you're here, pop something in the chat, say hi so that I know you're here, so that I know you can hear me. Lovely to see you all. Hi, Sarah, I can hear you. Excellent. Hi, Andy. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Dino. Hi, Dinos. Hi, Nicola. Oh, it's going too quick, you know. Pooja, Bernadette. Excellent. Alan. Hi, Alan. Okay, if I've missed anybody, I'm so sorry. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, as I've just said to everybody. My name's Sarah James, and I am the MD here at Layer 8. This is the third in our series of Security Champions Focus Masterclasses. And today we are focusing on how we can maintain and grow our Champions Network. The previous two sessions, which you can catch on our YouTube channel, were on the method that we use to develop champions in detail, and then also how we can make the business case for security champions. So today we are going to be looking at the foundations that are required to put together a really good champions network that has good, strong foundations and is long lasting. We're going to go into how we can grow our champions network, specifically looking at developing knowledge, maintaining momentum, and generating great activities for your champions. And we have a guest with us today. I'm pleased to announce we've got Joe Ramsey from Openreach, who's going to be telling us a bit about how we can maintain some longevity and some of the secrets to success. So I'm going to ask Joe to introduce herself in a moment, but get your pens ready because we will have a Q&A at the end and a short announcement that we'd like to make. So without further ado, Joe is the operations manager for the South at Openreach, and Joe has got an amazing champions program. It's been in place for over 6 years. There is a large number of champions. I won't say how many, I'll let Joe tell you how many champions they've got in place. But welcome, Joe. Could you tell our audience a little bit about you, about Openreach for those who don't know, and also some of the benefits that you get at Openreach for having such an engaged set of security champions?
Sure. So hi, I am the security manager, as previously said. So I work for Openreach, who are more or less run the entire broadband and phone network for the whole UK. So there's 35,000 members of staff. That's tens of millions of homes and businesses that are connected, and that's probably about 5,600 odd telephone exchanges that are included in the estate. So me personally, I am the security manager for the whole of the South. So I used to be a police officer, and then I've come over to the private sector and help them run things and investigate anything that's going to damage the Openreach brand or have an impact on Openreach business. So yes, we do have quite a large number of security champions. I think there's 740 odd. It grows almost on a monthly basis, actually. So these guys, we treat them as though they're our eyes and ears on the ground. So these are the people that are all across the business geographically, but also at all levels. So in all lines of business, so we've got some of them are directors, and we've got the CEO as a security champion as well. And then we've got all the way down to the engineers at the bottom there. So basically the value that it brings to us as a business is that what we're trying to create is a culture change. So we're trying to create a culture where everyone wants to do the right thing, and we've all got a common purpose, and everyone is working towards keeping the business as secure as possible. So the security champions are really the conduit for all the information that we need to spread out as a security team, and all the information that they see that we need in as a security team. So it's you know, it works both ways.
Absolutely.
But basically, it's about a positive culture.
Exactly, positive culture. Two things that I love that you said there: two-way communications, and I'm sure you've got a lot of jealous listeners. Your CEO being being a champion as well. That is a great job. Well done, well done. I'm just going to start with a little poll question now. I just would like to find out from the people that are on the call today whereabouts you are with your Champions program at the moment, what stage you're on. So you should see that appearing on your screen at the moment. So are you just considering doing one? Are you just about to launch? Are you already running one and looking for some new tips, or reinvigorating your program? Or perhaps it's none of those, and perhaps you're running an awesome program already. Let's see where people are at. And I think probably, Joe, Openreach are quite unusual in the fact that you started a program over 6 years ago now. I think a lot of people are only quite in the beginnings actually of their Champions programs.
Yeah, it takes time. It's a long running process. Like I said, you're trying to create a culture here, so it is a long running process. But yeah, if you can grab them early and take them on the journey with you, then it's brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. And yeah, the results on the screen here just kind of show that actually. 50% of you said you're just considering doing one, 12% just about to launch, 15% are already running one, and 23% are trying to reinvigorate your program. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Let's move on to how we can get the foundations right. So the three things that we have seen over the years that we've been running programs that are really key to getting the right foundations in place that can take us on a long-term journey here are choosing the right people. Once we've chosen the right people, how we can engage them in the right way, and then how we can involve our champions in developing the role. It's quite interesting when we speak to people that have already got security champions programs in place. If they're not working, they'll say things like, people aren't engaged in the right way, I can't keep their attention, or it starts really well, but then momentum starts to dwindle. So let's have a look at choosing the right people first. Now, it's interesting, some people we talk to say, is there a way that we can assess security knowledge of our champions before they start? You'll notice here on this slide, and something that I'm going to repeat over and over again, is the security champions role, or whatever you call it, ambassador, shield, etc. But the security champions role is primarily a communications role. And that's the key thing that we want to look for. Are these people either good communicators, or are they people who want to learn how to be good communicators? Because we can build security knowledge. Do they have an interest in the topic? Do they have a good personal story? And I'm going to come back to why a good personal story is interesting. Can they build relationships? So the second poll that I want to put up is perhaps a bit of an odd one, but I'm asking you, who here likes liver? Do you like liver? I chose liver because it's a bit of a Marmite situation, isn't it? Most people are not so keen on liver, but let's see. Let's see whether you guys like liver or not. Do you know what? I'm slightly surprised that 29% of you do like liver, 71% of you don't like liver. The reason that I ask that question is because it's a bit like when somebody tells you you're going to be a security champion. If somebody tells you you're going to like liver, it doesn't necessarily make you want to like it. And one of the key things that we see where the foundations have not been quite set correctly with champions programs is when champions have been told, or as one of my colleagues puts it very nicely, voluntold. The best security champions are volunteers. Like I said, it's a bit like telling you you're going to like liver. Just because I tell you, it doesn't change your mind on it. A close runner-up in terms of mistakes at the foundations level is when your champions come in, giving them an enormous manual that you've created about what the role of a champion is. Which leads us on to the second aspect of getting the foundations right, how we can engage our champions in the right way. So I'm going to ask you to do a quick exercise now. And for those of you that have worked with me before or been on a webinar, you may have heard this, so bear with me. It will become clear to everybody else. And I want to ask you to think about the best thing that's happened to you so far today, the absolute best thing. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking, but just something that perhaps put a smile on your face this morning. When you've thought of that, if you're happy to share it, pop it in the chat. I'll share mine. So I have a puppy, a lockdown puppy, who likes to wake me up every morning, probably between about 5:15 and maybe 5 to 6. This morning, I woke her up at 6:20. Yes, so that was the best thing that happened to me so far today. Joe, what about you? Do you want to share what's the best thing that happened to you so far today?
Slightly dramatic. So I'm actually on call at the moment, and there was a fire in one of our exchanges overnight. But the best news this morning was that no one was hurt, and that the building fabric is still in place, and so everything is in place for us to get services up and running again. So it is quite dramatic, not normally like that, but good news, no one was hurt. I'll take that every day of the week.
That is very good news. And I said it doesn't have to be amazing and enormous, but yours absolutely was amazing and enormous. So thanks for sharing that. And Maritza, I woke up my daughter and she gave me the best hug as I carried to get her ready to get her ready from school. I was dressed before 6:30. You see, it's the small things, isn't it? Often the small things that put that smile on your face. So thank you for sharing. So the reason that I ask people to do that is because when we choose to actively focus on the positives, not only does it bring a smile to our face, it makes us feel a bit different. And it's one of the core principles that we use with our Layer 8 Champions programs. And I'm just going to run through those principles quite briefly now, because some of the previous webinars that we've done go into it in a lot more detail. So principle number 1. We can choose to actively focus on the positives. Imagine if I had asked you to start off with the worst thing that happened today, or all the problems that you were having with your champions programs or your security strategy, how differently that would have made you feel. Now, the interesting thing is with security is we are trained to look at problems and weaknesses, etc. But if we in security are constantly talking like that, when we try and start to communicate with the wider business, it leaves the impression that, is there anything we can do to make a difference? Which is why choosing to actively focus on the positives helps people believe. And it helps people as well lead on to the second principle of the Champions Programme. What we talk about becomes our reality. Now, there's a very famous example of this, Muhammad Ali, his infamous trash talk. He'll go down in round 5, I'm the greatest boxer. He talked about things until he believed it. And he talked about it until everybody else believed it too. And that's a really important point when we're thinking about our vocabulary within the security department, what we want to pass on to our champions, and what we want to pass on then to the wider business. The reason that this is so important is because we then can use the strengths that we find, the strengths that already exist in our organization, to build the best practices in security. Because when we establish those positives, we can dig down and find out why they happen. The fourth principle of the Champions Programme, and when I'm saying this, I always feel like I'm in the Fight Club film, but the fourth principle is we need to make sure that we focus on the relationships. As security people, we're often very task driven. We need to get in, we need to get something done, it can be time sensitive. But sometimes if we take the opportunity to stop and focus on the relationship, the person, and understand them, then the results can follow. And not only do they follow, but they follow and they're much more positive, and they also stick and last for longer. The fifth principle of the Champions Programme is about creating change in a socially constructed way. And what I mean by that is we don't change because somebody's given us a book or a manual or pointed the finger and told us to do something. We tend to change because of the interactions we've had with people, the questions that we've been able to ask to build context and meaning for us. We make sense of what we do as human beings by trying things out and making mistakes. And we need to collaborate, which leads us onto very nicely how we can involve our champions in the creation of the role. That third point about getting the good foundations in place. Again, I'm not going to go into detail because I did this in the first webinar, but those 5 principles have been developed into a model. It's a change model that we use, where we can ask champions and people around the business to share points in time where they have protected the business, where they have felt proud and they have felt passionate. And what we can do is we can draw out these core values that make people do things above and beyond what they would normally do, above and beyond their job description. We can use those to say, if all of those strengths were in place as a norm instead of the exception, what could you do with the Champions Programme? So we create this shared vision, and then we move people through bit by bit by bit, using the strengths to work towards the vision or dream in this 4Ds approach to design and deliver a different future. So Jo, I feel like I've spoken for quite some time. I'm going to ask you a question now. You talked a bit about the benefits the programme has had for Openreach in general. But what about the champions themselves? What sorts of benefits are you seeing for champions?
So generally, the types of people that we're recruiting tend to come on the back of something that they've done quite well, you know, whether they've reported an incident to us or they've noticed something. And so we'll recruit them on the back of that and think that they've got the right skills. But they are genuinely invested in doing the right thing at that point. So the self-development that they get from that, so they get to take some ownership, they get to be, like we said, I will do something and they get to be the voice of that and spread the message amongst their team. So like I said, they're a conduit for communication, which involves their presenting skills or sharing stuff. They're a point of contact for the rest of their team. It's an extra responsibility that they get to take on and can use in their own job description or reviews at the end of the year. But also we find that they're genuinely interested in what the security space does. It's not a boring industry, is it? It's quite a sexy industry to people that have got nothing to do with it. And so they're coming on wanting to job shadow the security advisors and wanting to perhaps get into that space themselves. And so we have a lot of people that when we're recruiting for the team, they've normally been a security champion before that, and have got a genuine interest in it. So yeah, they're a role model for the other people in the team. So it's
really
good for their development.
Yeah, because you're kind of like holding them up as a beacon, so you're sort of allowing them to shine their light and get something for it.
Well, absolutely, and, they're the champion.
They're the champion, absolutely. And I also love what you said about the shadowing, etc., because sometimes security can seem very kind of cloak and mirrors, can't it? And we don't know what goes on behind those locked doors, which we obviously have to have. I guess feeling that they can get in there and find a little bit more, perhaps that they're privileged to know some of those things. Yeah,
I think they like to feel a bit special or a bit different to like the everyone else on their team. And so if you give them a little bit of an insight or a day in the life of, then it generally piques their interest, and they then take that back to their team and sort of talk about things from a different angle, maybe because they've seen things from from a different perspective.
Amazing. And I suppose as well, it's helping to develop the relationship as well, isn't it? That one-on-one relationship with people as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Love it. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk growth. Again, over the years, we have looked at three fundamentals that are required for successful growth in a business. They're the knowledge your champions hold, it's the motivation of continuing to keep those champions involved and engaged, and the activities. So if we have a look at knowledge to begin with, knowledge is interesting because, as I said right at the beginning, the security champion's role is really a communications role. So far before we're getting into talking about security, we want to be giving our champions the skills and the ability to be good communicators. I think if we look at most successful individuals, it doesn't necessarily mean that those successful individuals are the most intelligent or the people with the most knowledge. Successful people are people who know how to use it and know how to communicate. So we need to give our champions the ability to do that, whether it's helping them to introduce themselves as a champion, whether it's helping them to become good presenters, or to become people who are good at asking questions or developing relationships. They're the types of communication skills that we want to be imparting to our champions. And when we look then at the security knowledge, I'm sure most people on here as seasoned communicators will already know. Of course, we don't want to be telling them the 157 points from the 27001 manual. We want to be breaking that down into some core habits or core behaviours that we can engage our champions with, and upskill them in how to talk about that and how to discuss that within their teams. Really crucially, particularly now we have a very hybrid working environment, is we also want to give our champions the ability to be able to facilitate change at the grassroots. Not just know the security rules, but actually be able to get on a call with one of their team members and perhaps help them set up their home Wi-Fi, or help them choose a supplier in a secure way. So how can we actually facilitate our champions to embed those behaviours right down to the grassroots? Jo, I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more now about some of the things that you've done at Openreach to increase the knowledge of your champions.
So once we've signed them up, we would have a introduction call with their security advisor that's local to them, and that's just to introduce them, tell them a bit more about the role, and give them some information that they're probably going to need. I send out a monthly briefing. It's like a newsletter that shows the variety of jobs that are happening across the security space, but also it shows them the crime trends and what's happening in their area and what they need to look out for. So whether it's descriptions of people, or whether it's this location's having a problem with metal theft, look out for blue vans or whatever, we can get that to them, and we can get that to them in a concise manner. So we use workplace, like Facebook Workplace, to get them involved in stuff and get them spreading the message, so they're all aware of what's going on in their immediate area, but also nationally as well. A lot of the time we found that people have information and they want to do something with it, they just don't know where to go with it. So the security champions are the point of contact that can help people go in the right direction with whatever they've got. So they've got the phone numbers, they understand the reporting systems, and they can direct people to whatever they need to do. And it just takes some of the pressure off. We're quite a small security team. It takes some of the pressure off us to let them do that. Also, what we've found is that I've never been an engineer. I don't understand some of the stuff that they use. I don't understand how splicing fibre works. That's not my role. However, some people might feel more comfortable speaking to a security advisor whose role that is, who has a better understanding of that, and then can pick out the salient bits and learn what to do with that. So if we've got a particular problem or a particular issue at a certain location, then we'll go and attend team meetings with the security champions and speak to their team and get everything that we need to from them, and they'll give us everything that we need as well. We do quarterly calls, again, that are specific for locations or lines of business, and it just gives them a chance to all get on and chat about stuff and meet each other almost. Although sometimes they thought it was so they were so special and cloak and dagger, and they thought that there was only about 4 of them amongst the whole country. And then when they found out that there were 740, one of them looked a bit crestfallen to find out that he wasn't as special as he thought he was. But when you're talking about a company of 35,000 members of staff, he was soon sort of thought, oh, okay, I get it. I know where
exactly.
I'm at.
Still very special. No, some great pieces of advice there. So I think a couple of things that I'd pick up on, you're really trusting these champions to have access to perhaps some information that you wouldn't normally give. And that's probably a bit of a change maybe for some areas of the security team to suddenly feel comfortable and say, actually, I'm going to allow the champions to just have a bit more knowledge than I would perhaps ordinarily be comfortable with.
But so we call it daring to share, so dare to share. So basically it works both ways. Like I said, these people are the experts in their field, so they have a lot of knowledge on a system that I've never even seen before. So if there's a way around that system, or if there's a bit of equipment that's basically there's a big flaw in its security processes, I'm never going to use that bit of equipment. The people on the ground do, and they're the people that you need to be telling you, actually, I've heard that you can do this, or I've seen people do this. It has the potential, or there's a risk there that you need to mitigate. So it works both ways.
That's that absolute richness then, isn't it? Because you're getting the risk at the grassroots of the business. It's not just what your systems tell you, it's not just numbers and figures, it's actually what's happening. And there is where we can start to get this kind of holy grail of, is it possible to measure changes in behavior? Well, if we're having those right conversations, it may start to become possible. So I'm going to move us on now, if I can find my clicker, to motivation. So when we've spoken to people who have been champions for a long time, they have come back with 3 reasons that they've been champions for such a long time. First of all, they say, well, we're committed to the cause. Well, if we've got the foundations right, of course they're going to be committed to the cause, because actually they created the cause in the first place. The second aspect is commitment to the network. Again, if they've been collaborating, they don't want to let their teammates down. A real strong sense of team spirit when you've got champions networks that have been created together and people have been collaborating. And the third element is around influence. If we are giving our champions information about how to talk at team meetings, if we're giving them information about presentation skills, about good questioning techniques, we are teaching them to be influential, and therefore they're getting something in it for themselves, because it's helping them become more visible and helping their career prospects effectively. So that's where we see this real turning point as people in the business who are delivering security champions programs with our engagement managers, head of security awareness, etc. They say to us, we feel successful when we have turned from the people that are just creating loads of stuff for our champions and constantly trying to engage them, to the point where we become creators of opportunity. So they're creating opportunities for their champions, perhaps to do a project for the business, or creating an opportunity for them to present in front of the senior leadership team. And the champions are actually pulling together and creating what will happen within those projects. That's that turning point where our champions are becoming self-led, and the security team are becoming this creator of opportunity. And Joe, actually, I was going to ask you a question there. Sorry, I'll just go back a slide. Joe, I wanted to ask you about something we spoke about when we had a quick call last week. You have developed a Champion of Champions program, and I think everybody would be really interested to hear what that's about.
So we created it a couple of years ago now, and it normally takes place around Christmas time because it fits quite nicely. So it's basically throughout the year, the security advisors and security team nominate people to be the champion of champions, and so we shortlist it to 12, and it could be someone who's challenged in people without ID, it could be someone who's really driven a program looking at data control, or so it could be anyone throughout the whole business, and we shortlist them, and then we put them onto our Facebook workplace, and we allow the rest of the business to vote. And so we take a big poll, and say this year I think we had 7,000 odd people voting, which is quite good, and they've come back. It's just a little something to give them some recognition for doing the right thing, but you can also use it to basically sell, this was the problem and this is how they solved it, or this was the problem, this is how they reported it, and the impact that was made. So it gives them the recognition, it promotes the positivity, and it also drives a bit of general happiness throughout. It's Christmas time, do you know what I mean? Be a champion, get a certificate, win a prize. I think they got a Amazon Alexa or Google Home or something like that. So it wasn't, it was the accolade of being the champion of champion that they were in it for. Not the prize was insignificant, but it was all about the photos and the shining examples that they were.
No, yeah, absolutely. And then of course, that is also promoting the work that they're doing as well. Did you find that you got any more champions coming through asking to volunteer, having seen the Champion of Champions program?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to use ours in such a way that we're trying to hold them up as role models, or they're taking on this extra responsibility, and like we said, for no, it's voluntary. There's no metric or there's no target that they're going to get, and then it's just literally is about good behaviors, and then promoting that throughout their teams and spreading the messages that need to be spread. And so if you can create a role model, or if anyone else on the back of it thinks, oh, actually I've done that, or oh yeah, that's how I need to deal with it, or if it prevents an incident, then that's brilliant. And if you're along the way, if you can recruit some extra ones, and then they've got what it takes, haven't they? If they're looking at that and thinking, I want to do that, then it's good model behavior.
Exactly. Brilliant. I love that idea. Thank you for that. I'll move to the slide that I hastily went to before, just so we could talk a little bit about activities. Joe, I'm going to ask you to kick us off on this one, to perhaps share with us some of the activities that over these 6 years, I know you haven't been there for 6 years, but some of the activities that your champions get involved with over the course of a year.
Okay, so we normally have like service delivery and fibre network delivery roadshows that happen, and it's a chance for the senior leadership team to tell them all the exciting stuff that's going on in their business space. But the security team have a stand that we'll put up with some of our gadgets and some information and crime trends and other bits and pieces that we put on there, and the security champs tend to take ownership of that and run with it and give out all the advice, so that works quite well. As I said, we do the day in the life job shadowing. We've put all the information up on the workplace. We've got several campaigns that we run, so whether it be lock around the clock, and we get people the security champions to, when they're out and about, just to take photos of gates or things that are locked, just to say excellent, well done Enfield, and really good work Croydon, or whatever it is. So you're highlighting good behaviours rather than saying, oh, Slade Green, you've mucked up again and you haven't locked your gates. So it's all about the good work. And then we've got another one that's we called it the protect your assets hashtag, and we sort of got the security champions out with the stickering and sort of DNA solution, just literally marking everyone in their line of business or their teams high value assets, so that when they're stolen, we can trace them back to them and things like that. So they get involved. It's anything that's just a little bit out of the ordinary of their normal scope of job. So sometimes it's just a just job that we can't get to, you know, whether it be putting a padlock on a gate down in Truro. It's a long way. We'll send it to a security champion and get them to do it for us. Thanks. So, you know, it works both ways. They certainly come out with us and do some scrap dealer visits and compliance checks and things like that. And it's a really good insight for them, just to keep them motivated, really.
Fantastic. So just on your protecting the assets and the DNA things, do you offer to protect their personal assets as well? Is that sort of a
so there is, the DNA solution is linked to that particular exchange, but the information that you're giving them is well worth it. So I mean, to be quite honest with you, if they wanted to take some home and mark up some other bits and pieces, we wouldn't be adverse to that. It's, you know, they have all their kit issued to them when they are recruited, so their vans have got a hell of a lot of expensive kit on them, plus a laptop, plus their mobile phones, and all that sort of stuff. So it's more about the behaviors and teaching them what there is, and they then take that and think, oh, actually, yeah, I could probably do that to my bike, and I should probably do that to my laptop and my TV and other bits and pieces at home. And so it just gives them an insight, especially with regards to crime trends, you know, whether it be catalytic converter theft or whether it be I don't know, burglaries at telephone exchanges. You know, these things tend to be in high crime areas, and sometimes people live in those areas as well, so it does filter into their home life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really interesting. Thank you. And I think what you're creating every time is an opportunity for that champion to have a conversation with somebody, aren't you? So I guess you get to hear some of the things that are going on, sort of on the ground.
All the drama. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you end up getting involved in that you think, perhaps shouldn't really hear this. But yeah, there is stuff that creeps in from people's home lives. You know, we're a lot more contactable now than we've ever been, and we're a lot more, you know, with well-being, and you know, we're just a lot more open as a business to people having a family life, especially at the moment where people are working from home. You can't help it, and so we're just a lot more open to, you know, if someone's got a problem at home, then we don't want that creeping into their workspace. So we're just going to have to accept that we need to try and help them with that as much as possible as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Just up on the screen, I've got a couple of other activities that some of the other people that we've worked with have done. I won't run through all of them, but a few interesting ones to point out. Quite a lot of our large businesses go for a champion recruiting champion model. Often one of the key things that comes out of the initial workshop is when the sort of 20 or 30 sort of first group of champions are sitting there, as they say, wouldn't it be great if there was somebody in every part of the business that they could talk to? And of course, we can't necessarily on our own, if we're one person, just go out and recruit all of those champions. So a lot of organisations have used that. The other thing that's quite interesting is this champions commitment statements. People sort of say, well, what's the job description for a security champion? And we'd never advise to create a job description, but a champion's commitment statement can be created by the champions themselves. And it's something that then a champion will talk to other champions about as they join and say, this is what we stand for, this is what we get up to, this is what we're trying to make a difference to. And lastly, a little fun one here, the cake collection pot. One of our clients did this, and actually we used it in our offices as well. It's when you're back at the office and clear desk, clear screen, we would just put 50p in a pot, and at the end of the week, we would buy ourselves some lovely cakes. And actually that behaviour became so ingrained that I think we need to change what we're doing it for, because we don't buy ourselves cakes very often when we're in the office daily. So I would like to say, if you could start adding your questions to the Q&A panel, we will come to them in a few moments. I'm going to ask Jo to sort of round up a little bit by asking her to share First of all, what the secret ingredient she thinks there is to the long-term success of the Champions Programme at Openreach, and also a piece of advice you would give, Jo, to somebody who was just starting their Champions Programme today.
Oh gosh. So yeah. So I would say, and we've already spoken about it, it is voluntary. This is meant to be engaging. This isn't meant to be an extra stress or an extra workload or anything like that on them. So it's something where we need to be very conscious of their time, and we need to value that, and we need to say thank you and recognize it and share the successes, and be really conscious that we're not here to make their life any more difficult. In fact, they're here to make our life a lot more easier. So we need to be conscious of that. So I think that that's the secret ingredient, is just valuing their time and their input. And advice, again, like I said, be patient. So security, especially if you have a large company, getting people in the right departments or getting people at the right levels and things like that to really champion things, you need to be patient, and change does take a long time. But that's the beauty of the Champions Programme, is that you've all got a common goal and you're all working towards the same thing. And so it's good to be patient, but keep momentum would be the things that I'd say.
Nice. Great advice. Thank you so much, Jo. Cool. I can see a couple of questions coming in. I'm going to take 1 minute of your time just on a few real quick announcements, just about what's keeping me and Layer 8 busy over the next 12-ish months. First of all, quite a few organisations that we have worked with have said, wouldn't it be great if, because of the work that our champions do, they can come away with some sort of formal qualification, some sort of accreditation. So watch this space, because we're going to be working on this over the next 12 months to get our programme and all of the content and learning that's involved with it accredited. So you will have something to give your champions, or so people will have something to give their champions. And the second thing that I want to say really quickly is we are changing a little how we run our champions programmes this year. So we are going to be doing some group training sessions where we can teach and where you can learn the technique for the Champions Programme. I rushed over it very quickly at the beginning of the programme. We are going to be giving people access to all of the resources that come for Champions Programmes. So a toolkit to do exercises with champions, run workshops, develop strategies, blah, blah, blah. And also in terms of implementation, different varieties, from us fully implementing to us just being available to support. We are a small but perfectly formed team, so we've only got a few spaces on these programs. I'm not going to talk about it anymore now because it may not be relevant to everybody. But if you do want to come along, you should get an email in your inbox around 1:30. If I have set it up properly, here's hoping automation works. Yeah, you should get an email in your inbox inviting you to, there's a number of different sessions we're running. If you want to find out more, we'd love to see you there. So I'm going to go across to the Q&A. I can see that there's 3 questions in there. I haven't seen what they are. Let's see if I can open them up. Cool. David. Hi, David. It's lovely to see you again. David, I believe this one is for Jo, because it starts off with, in Openreach.
Oh gosh.
So it says, in Openreach, just under 2% of the workforce are champions. Would that be a good ratio, or is there an ideal or a minimum? Jo, I don't know if you want to have a crack at answering that, and then I can come back to it as well.
Yes, you can fill in at the end and answer it correctly. So I would say, I mean, obviously it depends on the size of the teams, and it depends on how vocal or dormant those people are, really, or whether they are doing the role properly. We would love to have more. Ideally, everyone would be a security champion. However, it would negate the feeling of being a little bit special. I think the key to it probably is having people across a spread across the business and at different levels, just to get it spread. But as far as ratios goes, I shall hand that one over to you, Sarah.
To be honest, Joe, I would answer it exactly the same way as you. I think the key thing is that people have got a champion that is accessible to them. And you need to think about how your organisation is spread. If it's got lots of different sort of siloed functions with people in lots of different locations, you may need more champions, because you want people that know each other, that connect with each other on their Zoom team meetings or in the office or wherever they're based. But if you've got an organisation that is perhaps located a bit closer together, then I think you can have that ratio slightly higher. We want to make sure that our champions are accessible and people know who their champion is. So I hope that answers your question to a certain extent, David. Bernadette, okay, moving on. How do you engage champions when the general feeling in your organisation is, don't put something else on my plate? Shall I start with that, or do you want to give that one a go, Joe?
Start with that one, Sarah, and then I'll jump in.
So it's a real tricky one, Joe, and I think what I would say is, if we can start with something that almost starts under the radar a little bit. So it can be very difficult, I think, to go in and say, right, I want this enormous champions program that's going to be sort of like 700 odd champions. It's going to take people a couple of hours a week. It's difficult for people to be able to understand why they should do that and what value is going to happen. So one of the things that can work is if you start a champions program by stealth. It could just start with a couple of people getting together and build and build and build. And if we're doing it using people's values, asking people to start with sharing stories, actually, we're not asking them to do anything apart from share a story to begin with. And once they're engaged and start coming together, then actually we can reflect that question back to that group of interested people. How do you think we can change this? What do you think the Champions Network could do? How engaged do you want to be? What sort of things could we be doing? So we get them to tell us rather than us tell them. So I hope that helps a little, Bernadette. Joanne, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
Yeah, I think that you're right. It can be incredibly difficult because, people are busy. They've got jobs to do. And so I think that, just because we have 740, I'm not saying that all 740 of those are vocal. Some of them are naturally quite quiet people, but they're nosy, but they're quite quiet people. And so, they might be confident when you speak to them, but, they won't necessarily volunteer that information to you. So we try to touch base with everyone probably once a quarter. Some of them literally phone you every single week, with some bits of information, and they're really proactive and they're definitely on board with everything you do, and they're actually, quite vocal about it. But other ones, it's quite good just to touch base with them, check that everything's all right, because you'll probably find that those are the most observant people that sit back, take the information in, watching what's going on, and they might prefer to use other methods to report things, whether it be anonymous reporting lines or other things like that, but they generally tend to be the good people watchers, I think. So just touch base with them, reach out to people, give them a bit of encouragement every now and again, make it personal.
Yes, thank you. Cool, there's quite a few other questions. So Louise, thank you. Louise says, regarding comms, what channels do you ask your champions to share comms in, if any? And what type of comms do you ask them to share, and how often? Could I come to you on that one, Joe?
Yeah, now this is a big one. Obviously, we've got, there are GDPR issues, especially if they're going to be whacking up photos of number plates and God knows what else on our Facebook pages. So we have reporting mechanisms that are in place, and they are reminded every single time, phone it through, here's the phone number, it's on the back of your cards and all this sort of stuff. So there are reporting mechanisms for that, and it's their job to be informing the rest of the team to abide by that anyway. if we get things through the back door, or that aren't officially reported to us, then we'll advise them to go through to our central reporting thing. But every now and again we do have to monitor our Facebook workplace. It can get out of hand. I'm not going to lie. But we've got a champions page, and then we've got a separate security pages which anyone can post on, and we'll direct them through that. But the champions pages, again, they can share through that on workplace. Then we've got our central reporting systems, then we've got anonymous reporting lines, and we've got, they can drop, because we've got a relationship with them, they can drop us an email personally, or they can just pick up the phone and ring us. That's the way it works, the same as we do to them. So we've built a relationship with their local advisor who they should know the name of at least, and should have some sort of relationship with. So they tend to be on first name terms, really.
Perfect, personal touch. And Louisa's second question is, how do you monitor the reach or impact of the network? Do you use KPIs? I don't know if you have anything on that, Joe. I've got a few things that I can talk about that I've seen elsewhere.
Yeah, so we do a security survey that goes out once a year. And that goes out across the business, but then for the security champions, it's pretty much mandatory that they need to be filling that in, and that monitors a lot of the stuff as far as the reach goes. But we haven't got any specific KPIs for them. As I said before, this is a voluntary role for them. It's no extra stress, and I think it would be, I don't know how many people would want to take it on if they're strictly monitored and they've got to achieve this and it's going to affect the performance rating or whatever else it is. I'm not sure that would be necessarily the right way to go about things. But Sarah, I'll let you deal with the rest of that question.
Yeah, no problem. So I think absolutely right. For security champions, perhaps not, but actually as individuals, but perhaps for the network, there could be something that can be created. Now, I always so David, who's on the call, you taught me these OKRs when we spoke ages ago, and I use them all the time now because I think they're amazing. So OKRs are objectives and key results, and I think one of the things that you can do is actually, as a group of champions, is instead of telling your champions what targets they need to have, is when you develop that set of key habits or key focuses that you want to look at in your vision statement, you can say, well, how are we going to notice whether they are making a difference? And we can draw down from that, and we try to draw down from that in two ways. So for security cultural behaviors, we can see what's happening by what people are doing and what people are saying. So if we identify as a group of champions what the behavior is that we're wanting to change, and then if we can ask ourselves the question about what will people do to demonstrate that that's important to them, and what will people say to demonstrate that that's important to them, they are some of the things that can be captured as metrics to report on effectively. So then we would go to those champions, or you would go to those champions on a regular basis to say, for this behavior, what discussions are you having about this? What things are you seeing that are happening differently as a result of what's happened with the champions network? So there's some of the ways that we would measure it. Cool, right, I'm going to move on because I can see there's quite a few more. Pooja, hi Pooja. How can we ensure new and tenured champions are on the same page? Generally, you have additions every 6 months. So I don't know whether you've got anything on this, Joe. I've got some things that people do.
So we have, like, obviously during their training, the learning and development, they get security input as well, and then, as I say, we capture quite a lot of them on the back of incidents or on the back of them being proactive, and that generally tends to ensure that you get the right people. So, and road shows as well, we get a lot of people through for them. Yeah, we don't really well, yeah, it's a difficult one, that, because, like I said, some people are more dormant than others, and some people are ridiculously vocal, and that's just their personality type. But it's one of those things where you just have to chivvy everyone along on the same common message, and they do their own thing in their own style, and as long as you're just keeping a general eye over them, then eventually you get to a stage 6 years down the line where the champions pretty much run themselves, and you're just there as a management tool almost, just to facilitate them into doing the right thing. So yeah. Perfect. I'll leave the rest up to you, Sarah.
No, I think the other thing that we've seen as well is, I completely agree with what you're saying, Joe. We can't have everybody at the same level all of the time. But a method that can work quite well is almost like this pyramid approach, where you've got the first champions developing kind of the inductions almost and the commitment statements, and those champions then bringing other people in. Of course, they won't be up to the same skill level and knowledge level perhaps as those initial champions, but they will be brought into the fold, and they'll understand what's expected of them, why they're working, etc. And I think having tools like that available, having information and face-to-face sessions, face-to-face, whether that's, you know, virtually face-to-face like this, or whether that's physically face-to-face, where champions can meet other champions and talk and understand and get a real flavour for what the role's about, and what they're trying to achieve, so they can really feel part of it.
It's quite lucky, isn't it? Because I mean, Openreach are recruiting still at the moment, so you know we're on this big journey for recruitment. But it's quite lucky to the younger people that coming into the company are much more flexible in their approach to things, and they're not frightened of change. Whereas you tend to see Openreach has got a long history of people working for 35, 40 years for the same company, and it tends to be the slightly older, more experienced people that tend to be a little bit slower on the change curve. And so, once you've captured, some champions that are on from the older generation, they're more than happy to mentor the young people, and the young people coming in are just if you can get them with good behaviors from the beginning, then it's a lot easier to keep them going, rather than someone who has poor behaviors and try and change it. It's a difficult journey. It's easier to get them going at the beginning bit and the recruitment bit, and whilst it's all fresh and exciting and everything Absolutely. Like that. So those are the ones you need, I think.
We found that in quite a few organisations, actually. Yeah, the graduates make great champions. So cool. Right, we've got 3 questions left and 3 minutes to go. So, Suzanne, thank you. How do you hold your champions accountable? Do they track the activities they do with you? I think I know how you're going to answer that one, Joe.
So we do. There's a few things where we would track them, but because we're not giving them specific tasks, or anything like that, we're just asking them to be conduits of information and to communicate. It's very difficult to monitor that, or to be able to justify that on a spreadsheet, basically. So we wouldn't do that initially. It would just be, if we're speaking to someone else, we're like, oh, well, who's the security? Do you know who the security champion is on your team? Or have you spoken to such and such about it? And if they haven't, then we know perhaps they're being a bit too quiet, or they're not fulfilling their role, basically. So yeah, there's generally we wouldn't monitor that too heavily. I think people get bogged down in statistics and facts and things like that, whereas really it's a communication. It's wide, it's open, it's it flows with the business. It shouldn't be too strict, because otherwise you'll get lost in the stats, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Joe. Cool. I'm going to run through these next few questions relatively quickly so we get to answer all of them, hopefully. Nadine, any advice on creating and maintaining a champions network remotely? So we've done quite a few of these, actually, and we've started off by putting people together on a call, a webinar, and just asking them to share a story about a time that they have protected the business. Break off into little breakout rooms and share those stories one-to-one, and then come together as a group. So yeah, I think it's about using the technology as we've all had to go to, but not removing the conversation. Remembering that even though we are not all in the office together, we can still find ways to have great conversations. This one has to be answered by Joe, because Simon says, how would you recommend gaining CEO or MD support? What worked for you to gain the top buy-in?
Do you know what? Public humiliation is a really good tool here. So, like, at a roadshow, we directly asked him in front of his peers and everything like that, and yes, signed him up, took a photo, and things like that. So I think that it's a very powerful tool, is communicating with someone, and you'll find it's very difficult for people to say no. If you're trying to do something positive for the business at their level, they should be saying yes. And you know, you're doing something that's for the benefit of their company and encouraging good behaviors. And like we said, it's no extra work. All they've got, you know, it's not like you're asking them to put extra stress on them. So I would be very disappointed if they didn't say yes. You know, it would be certainly, yeah. I mean, I was shocked the other day, not because I send out the monthly champions briefing, and my CEO actually wrote directly to me and commented on something in there. So I was shocked, not only that he contacted me directly, I thought I'd done something wrong, but that he actually read it. You know, so it's not just something that lands in his inbox and he doesn't look at it. He actually read it, and you know, it triggered something and he commented on it. So yeah, you'll be amazed.
Fantastic, well done. The other thing that I'd add to that is, if you haven't got the opportunity to do what Joe did, also get them to share their story. That's another great way. Right, I apologize because we are overrunning very slightly, but we've got one question left and I'm determined we're going to answer it. So thank you so much, Jeffrey. Jeffrey says that he's just starting with his program. We're starting recruiting this week. Good luck. We're planning to make it a grassroots movement up front. We've developed formalized materials. My question is, I have about 40 people that I've got contact with throughout the organization. Do you think it's okay to seek them out? I would say yes. If you've got people that you think could make good champions, ask if they want to come along, ask if they want to give it a go. I would absolutely say yes. And also, we want to focus on this being a fun and a voluntary program. Do you think that's a good idea? 100% from me. Joe, do you have any final words?
Definitely. I mean, people, it's voluntary. You know, if they want to opt out, then they can opt out at a later date. Go for it. Target the right people, get them on board a journey, and make it positive, make it fun, make it engaging. Otherwise, it's not going to last. Brilliant.
So that is that. And thank you, first of all, to Joe for coming on and sharing with everybody all this advice. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for listening. My details are up here. However, if you would like to contact Joe, please just come through to me and I will direct the question across to Joe. As long as there's not thousands of them, I'm sure she would be more than happy to help out. But thank you very much, everybody. And thank you for those of you who've joined from the States. I hope it's not too early for you. Okay. Speak to you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.